Hello, good morning, Renée. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Magic. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm good, and I'm super happy that I see you again on my channel because it's been a while since we had a chance to record something.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so it's good to see you again. I mean, we do stay in touch,
Yes.
offline, but this is the first time in a while that we are recording something online, right?
Yeah, well, we've both been very busy with our transformations, which really um, aligns beautifully with the reason why we're back on camera. And I think we have some valuable insights to share with an audience that's going through transformation of all sorts of transformations, but specifically career transformations. And I'm excited that we're here again.
For those of you that are listening or watching this video, uh, Renee is a good friend of mine for a long time. Right now, you have a couple of hats, Renee, so you better introduce yourself.
I would say first and foremost, I'm a mother of a beautiful 18-year-old that just graduated high school. I'm also an entrepreneur and a small business owner, and um, certainly, I would say, an experienced technologist and executive in corporate America who has made a successful transition into the next phase of my career and my life.
Yes, and what is Clean Canvas Consulting? Just to make sure that everybody knows what
Yeah.
is next to your name.
Yes. So after, and we'll get into it a little bit, but for those who don't tune in very often, after 28 years in corporate America, um, I had a separation with the company that I worked for all of that time. And the best path for me was to open up my own consulting firm. And that is how Clean Canvas Consulting was born. And the name gives you a little bit of a tip, right? I wanted to start with a clean canvas. There you go. I hope others do the same.
You want to still go with Clean Canvas and then go with Magic, right?
Yeah. Oh, we always go with magic.
We always go with Magic. So Renee and I, we had a chat a couple of days ago, and we've seen uh, this raising number of messages about
Hmm.
uh, basically what we used to call in our ex company workforce reductions or
Hmm.
layoffs or separation agreements.
Hmm.
Many beautiful names for this pretty difficult situation for the employees.
Yeah.
And since we have some experience and we went through a separation or uh, mutual separation or not mutual separation, whatever we call it, uh, I have received a couple of calls from my ex-HPE colleagues,
Hmm.
and you have received a few kind of messages as well. So we
Hmm.
decided that we want to share, maybe with a broader audience, our experience for the career transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been, to give everybody out there context, it's going on almost 2 years since, approximately, give or take a few months, since our different separations. We separated at almost the same time, but we probably were, I don't know, about a month separated. And certainly the tech sector, particularly, right, is not a stranger to separations or workforce reductions. So this is not a novel idea. But there's been a lot going on recently in this time of the year, and in the last couple of months, actually, where we've seen an increased number of really huge layoffs. And because Magic and I had been in the industry for so long, and we have many connections across not just our own company, but other companies in tech, other providers of technology, whether it's distribution or resellers and so forth and so on. We've been getting a lot of those LinkedIn messages, a lot of those Signal chat messages, or however you communicate with the people in your tech sectors around, oh my gosh, right? I've been laid off after 8 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 30, 32, 33. And that really inspired us to kind of come back with some fresh content to provide some perspective 2 years after our own separations. And we hope that you find some really valuable nuggets to help you with your own transformation.
Because as much as the separation and the layoffs is not something new to the tech industry, certainly any situation like that, it's always news to the person that is impacted. It's people kind of expect it, but when it happens,
Hmm.
it's never
Yeah.
expected. It's always a surprise. It's always a pretty shocking experience.
Hmm.
We are seeing a lot of very smart, very talented people suddenly out of work.
Hmm.
uh, it's a it's not only a professional exercise, it's a very personal exercise, especially for those of you who have been with the company for a long time,
Hmm.
and for those of you listening who are with the company for a long time, and you think like this is a kind of a insurance policy.
Hmm.
Forget it. I don't think there is any insurance policy against sudden reductions in the organization. So because we feel it's a very personal and very shocking experience, very difficult experience, uh, and because we see how a lot of our friends have also transitioned away from the previous life to the new chapter, we decided to start this podcast, which we
Hmm.
call Beyond the Badge, a breakup you grow from,
Hmm.
and take you through a couple of very practical recommendations, take you on the journey of our last 2 years, 2.5 maybe,
Hmm.
what we felt just after the conversation with our boss, what are the steps that we've taken, and two different perspectives, Renée, right? Because you live in the US,
Hmm.
different legal situation, different laws, uh, different type of contracts available. I live in
Hmm.
Europe.
Hmm.
It's a different story as well. So we decided to go with you on this journey step by step together.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the other thing that I've also been hearing, and it's interesting, maybe this is unique to the US right now, but I've been speaking to a lot of people that have self selected or have initiated the breakup or the separation, right? And the reason they've reached out is either they've been offered early retirement or some other package, right? And they somewhat have said, okay, I choose to do this versus being, getting that dreaded phone call on a Monday usually, or a Friday, depends on on the department, um, and getting the news that you've been impacted by a reduction. The reason they've reached out is because people find themselves surprised at the feelings that they're feeling around the breakup, and that's another thing that we'll cover throughout our time together, because just because you initiate something doesn't mean you're not going to go through some of the same psychological effects and emotional effects. And it also means that some of the tips and advice that we will share here will apply to you as well.
And I want to say this, Renée, because I went through a couple of conversations like that with various friends from various companies and industries.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter whether you initiated the exit or whether the company initiated the exit. Um, it is going to be, first of all, it is going to be perceived the same at the end of the day.
Hmm.
I came across a few people that were saying like, you know what, I initiated that. That was my choice. I really
Hmm.
wanted to do it my way. There were some other people that were saying, well, I had this kind of a difficult call with my boss,
Hmm.
and I was asked to leave. Um, it's always and there are very fluid, kind of a in betweens between those
Hmm.
two kind of a situations. I don't think it makes that makes the difference really. I think what
Mhm.
makes the difference is how many years you've been with a company, how much you have grown to be, how much you have been identifying yourself with the company that you worked for. Because at the end of the day, both externally and internally, you probably will go through the same journey, even if you were the one who initiated the the separation process.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because one of the things that happens, like when you belong to any class, let's say your favorite soccer team or football team, or the university you graduated from, the community that you live in. What happens is, as social beings and human beings, we want to feel like we're part of a group, and this is exactly what happens when you join a company. And one of the things we will talk through as we walk you through this series is the language and all the things that at least we've found, but also is backed up by some research, that occurs when your identity gets so wrapped up with this company that you work for, which serves you very well when you're in the company, because the company wants you to feel the team spirit and be part of the company and live and breathe the company. But that subconsciously starts doing certain things to you that when you wake up one day, you don't realize, oh my gosh, right? What am I? I'm lost. What do I do now? And that's some of the things we want to walk you through.
Yes, the badge has defined you for many, many years.
Hmm.
It has been your shield, your support. In many, many cases, the badge would open a lot of doors, not only
Right.
physically, but also, I don't know, with people, with institutions.
Hmm.
I remember many, many times when I had a badge,
Hmm.
when I had, corporate badge, it would
Hmm.
open the door. The company provided a lot of privileges,
Hmm.
uh, defined and undefined, frankly saying.
Yep.
And suddenly you have to start managing things on your own,
Hmm.
starting with a mobile phone
Hmm.
number,
Hmm. Hmm.
your PC, your email address. Your email
Yep.
address will change as well.
Hmm.
You will no
Hmm.
longer have an email address that will be the company domain.
Hmm.
Uh, there will be a lot of things that you will have to go through, and that emotional journey is going to be initially very difficult before you
Hmm.
hit this kind of a next step in your career, which is going to be other discussions in our podcast in the future, which is how to move into this mode that you and I are in, which is more
Yeah.
of a entrepreneur
Hmm.
approach.
Hmm.
Entrepreneur, consultant, maybe
Hmm.
a speaker, maybe
Hmm.
there are so many other opportunities and possibilities out there.
Hmm.
Uh, because even though you are defined by the badge, what is truly important is you yourself are being an extremely valuable person with a lot of knowledge and experience, and frankly saying, you will have to rediscover this
Yeah.
for yourself.
Yeah. Well, and that's what inspired the name of our podcast to begin with, right? Beyond the badge, because you've been for so long used to waking up and being defined by the persona of this company, because most of us work very long hours. Therefore, that's the identity more than, which is when I introduced myself earlier, I introduced myself as a mother first and as these other, because we walk around with many archetypes. And because the work archetype is the one where we spend the most amount of time in, when you then have to switch that archetype, especially if you are tied to a really big brand, like we were attached to really big brands, which is why it opened so many doors, and there was so many non-written benefits and subconscious benefits that we got out of that, right? And that happens to a lot of other people. So it's I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be sometimes cathartic, right? And we invite you to send us questions. You can email us. You can send us direct messages via LinkedIn. You can find us on WhatsApp You can find us on Signal. Signal is a little bit more difficult to find us. You're going to have to reach out. But certainly, I would say LinkedIn is probably a very easy way to send us a DM. Um, I'm on Facebook. I'm on TikTok. I'm on all the socials. But LinkedIn for sure is the one I probably check most often. So we really hope to add value to kind of help you in this journey. There is a lots of light at the end of that tunnel. It continues to be an evolution, and we invite you to really um, kind of be very kind to yourself and allow you to process all of the changes and feel all the feelings, um, and hopefully we'll get you moving in a good direction.
And I need to say that me, Renee. I'm a super positive person
Hmm.
always.
Yeah,
This is going to be a very positive discussion. Okay, we don't
yeah.
want to sit down. I always recognize that there is a need for a grief and for
Hmm.
kind of a processing stuff. And I also had to process a lot of things. But
Yeah.
I think it's going to be very important that you have a certain attitude to how you process
Hmm.
your stuff.
Hmm.
Because again, like I met with a few people and they were like all down and extremely, like, hey, I've done so much for the company and it's not very grateful. It doesn't matter. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Because what really matters is you are such a great person to work with, and there are so many other people out there, not from your past employer, but you know from other companies, from your family, somebody that has already left many years ago and
Hmm.
has been through the journey. There are many people that you can reach out to
Yeah.
and talk to. So I guess the ideas that we have in our mind with Renee is, first of all, to help you with a kind of a shock of the discussion.
Hmm.
And I think the first stage is extremely important when you go, because you have this couple of weeks when you are still with the company, and there are things that you should be doing
Hmm.
to make sure that your exit is smooth and really, you're not going to lose anything. Because one thing that people don't realize many times is the moment they exit, they're out of the system. They're completely out of the system.
Hmm. Yeah.
There's no email. There's no more. Your email doesn't exist. You
Hmm.
cannot access anything. And there's a lot of things that you should be doing before you leave the company, just to make sure that your exit is really, really smooth. And
Hmm.
I would like to talk about this, with you and with Renee. What are
Hmm.
the steps that I've taken? What are the steps that I recommended to people? What are the things that I should have known,
Hmm.
and I wasn't told? Like,
Yeah.
for example, that a year after the separation, uh, my benefits accounts with the long-term incentives is going to change the structure completely, which will make it extremely difficult to access it and use it. Okay, things like that cost a lot of nerves later on, and you should
Hmm.
know in advance. Uh, we would like to talk about what are the ways of taking this next step, how to start thinking about your new career paths. And maybe Renee and I, we could actually invite maybe some of our friends,
Hmm. Hmm.
okay, to join
Yeah.
us on this conversation.
Yeah.
What else, Renee, we should cover?
Well, I definitely um, want to talk about language, right? How we structure even sentences and the words that we use, um, because we've been using these words for so long. And the longer
Yeah.
you've been with your employer, the more ingrained it is, right?
And it's
Um,
not just the corporate talk. So
yeah.
it's not only the way you talk about yourself, it's also, like the way you talk, the way you structure it is
Hmm.
sometimes very, 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 uh, very strange. And you will kind of I don't know, is there an expression in English to bite your tongue, Renee?
Well,
It's basically when you say something and then you wish you never said it.
yeah,
Bite your tongue, like you wish you
yeah,
bite your
yeah,
tongue
yeah.
before you
Yeah.
said it, right? So
Yes, yes,
there
yes.
are things that you need to kind of switch your brain from talking about. just the everyday reality, frankly saying, and where your mindset sits.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I hadn't thought about before we got on. I hadn't thought about the impact of the email, even though it's interesting. And this happened, I think, for both you and me. After being about 15 years with my employer, there was a merger of the companies that then created a change to my email node, my at blah blah blah, right?
The domain, yes, the domain.
Exactly.
I
And
went through this
so
3 times. Yes.
exactly, you did, because your history is even further back than mine. So you went through different acquisitions in Europe. So for me, it was one big acquisition, and that was a big change. So we probably should dedicate some time to that. I liken this process, and I'm big on analogies. So for some people, this may resonate, others not. But to either a divorce or a death, and both a divorce and a death. I've handled the passing of my parents and my grandparents, and there's a lot of paperwork associated with all of it. And so I think we should dedicate a channel or dedicate a talk on that as well. So there's a lot of things we'll go through and we'll discover. And yeah, we definitely want to make sure that you walk away with practical things you can apply immediately, from the way you talk to how you handle your email. And then, of course, some other things around what's next. How do you define and identify what you want to do next? And hopefully that will add value to our audience, and you'll keep coming back for more and more and more.
Okay. So for the next episode, what we are going to, and we're going to record it next week. What
Yes.
we are going to do is we're going to prepare a list of tips after you had the conversation, before your email disappears. What are the top things that you need to do,
Yeah.
just to make sure that you don't scratch your head later on and say like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. And I
Hmm.
will give you some tips, and we'll give you some resources, some information, not only the
Hmm.
ones that you get as a checklist before exit checklist from your
Yeah.
employer, but also the things, the very practical things that we've observed later on, when we actually were out of the company. How
Hmm.
things were difficult or easy because we've taken some of the precautions or not.
Yes.
Hmm?
Yes.
So subscribe to the channel, follow Renee and myself on LinkedIn,
Yep.
connect with us, ask questions. If you have any individual questions, there is a Calendly link on my LinkedIn, where as an ex-HPE employee, you can basically schedule some time with me, and
Hmm.
we can talk. I'm really happy to share with you all my experience, all my
Yep.
ideas, everything that I went through over the last 2.5 years.
Excellent. Yes, similar for me. LinkedIn is where I spend a lot of time. And there's a little link at the top of my profile that says book time, and you get to book 30 minutes, no charge, and we can talk about anything you want to talk about, right?
Thank you, Renee, and speak to
Good.
you next week.
Thank you, Magic. See you next week. See you, everybody.